The sun beat down mercilessly on Kola's back, the sand shimmering with a deceptive heat haze. He was 17, barely a man, yet already his life felt ancient, etched with the harsh lines of suffering. The caravan, a slow, agonizing procession of misery, snaked across the endless expanse of the Sahara. Dust choked his lungs, thirst gnawed at his throat, and the memories of his village, of his family's laughter and the scent of his mother's cooking, felt like a phantom limb, aching with its absence. He had been lured from his home in Timbuktu with promises of work in Tripoli, a city shimmering with tales of wealth and opportunity. The reality was far crueler. Kidnapped, sold, and forced into servitude, Kola was now just another nameless cog in the brutal machinery of the trans-Saharan slave trade. For 7 years, he toiled under the blistering sun, building roads, hauling goods, enduring the lash of the overseer's whip. Every day was a monotonous struggle for survival, the hope of freedom a flickering candle threatened by the wind. The only solace came from the shared whispers of his fellow slaves, the quiet acts of defiance, the stolen moments of shared food and fleeting camaraderie that sustained their broken spirits. But the yearning for freedom burned brighter than the desert sun. The opportunity arose unexpectedly. A careless guard, drunk on cheap liquor and lulled into complacency by the stillness of the night, left a section of the perimeter unguarded. Kola, seizing the chance, slipped away, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. He ran, driven by a primal instinct for survival, the fear of recapture spurring him onward. He traversed the desert under the cover of darkness, guided by the stars and the whispered knowledge passed down through generations of enslaved people. He avoided patrols, scavenged for food, and drank from whatever meager sources of water he could find, his body growing thinner, his strength dwindling. Days bled into nights, the landscape shifting from a bleak, unforgiving wilderness to a promise of escape. Eventually, he reached the Mediterranean coast, exhausted but resolute. He stowed away on a cargo ship bound for Europe, his heart soaring with the hope of a new beginning. The journey was perilous, fraught with the dangers of the sea and the ever-present threat of discovery. But he clung to the railing, his eyes fixed on the distant horizon, the image of a life free from the chains of slavery his only compass. He finally reached Italy, his dream seemingly realized. The euphoria of freedom was short-lived. The Italian authorities, alerted to his presence, apprehended him. Despite his pleas, his desperate recounting of his ordeal, his years of enslavement, his yearning for asylum, he was deemed an illegal immigrant. The paperwork was cold, unyielding, indifferent to the scars on his soul and the trauma etched onto his face. Kola's narrative, though undeniably harrowing, was not enough. He was deported, sent back to the very land from which he had so desperately fled. The ship that carried him back to West Africa was a vessel of broken dreams, a cruel irony that mirrored the journey of his life, a desperate flight for freedom ending not in liberation, but in the crushing weight of despair. He returned to Timbuktu a shadow of his former self, his escape a painful reminder of the insurmountable odds against a young man trying to overcome the brutal legacies of exploitation and indifference. The desert, once a symbol of his enslavement, now became a chilling reminder of the world's unwillingness to truly see his pain.